What's up, y'all? What's up? Welcome to the Pugilistic Linguistic Show. I am your host, Michael Foster, the voice of reason in an increasingly unreasonable world, and I am back. Before I get started, like I say all the time, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you so you can get notified when I drop new episodes. They got this new hype feature I don't know nothing about, but it can't be bad. So hype it up. Get this out to your people. Tell people about this podcast. It don't cost you nothing. A simple YouTube click. 30 minutes later, you're more enlightened than you were when you first started. Ain't nothing better than that. So help a brother out. Trying to build this up in 2026. So I want to talk about something that has been weighing heavy on my mind for the better part of, I would say, 20 some odd years. Um, Anybody that knows me knows I'm originally from Chicago. I say born and raised. Technically, I was born somewhere else, but raised in Chicago from an infant. So born and raised. And I will tell you that I would not trade being raised or growing up in Chicago for anything in the world. Was it all good? No, it wasn't all good. I grew up in the hood. But there was something about growing up in the hood during the time that I grew up there. It was different. You know, the hood had rules, hard and fast rules. And it was a strange dichotomy because here's what I mean. There was an unwritten rule in the hood when I was growing up that the gangsters, the thugs, whatever, they didn't bother children. If you were doing something with your life, if you were going to school, if you were playing sports, if you were doing something, you don't bother children. You let them do what they do. Now, the ones that are stragglers, the ones that you know ain't about nothing, or the ones that they knew weren't doing what they were supposed to do, they were prey. They were the ones they would try to get get to hustle for them or get them into gangs or whatever. But the kids that they know were trying to be on the straight and narrow, those are the ones that they left alone. As a matter of fact, I distinctly remember times. Okay, so I grew up on 120th in Indiana, and between Indiana and Michigan, there was this big hill. It was a hill. It was downhill from Michigan Avenue to Indiana, and the way the gangs, the way the rivalries, territories set up, people from up the hill didn't like people from down the hill. It's silly, and I'll get to how silly that was in a moment, or how silly it's become in a moment. But that was the way it was. People from up the hill didn't like people from down the hill, and there was always some kind of conflict. Where the thugs, the game bangers, the whatever you want to call them, from our side of the hill, the Indiana side, the bottom of the hill, would always kind of give us safe passage when we were walking to and from school. They would always try to make sure that nobody bothered us as we were walking to and from school. I don't know. Maybe it was an ego thing with them. Maybe it was a these are our people type thing, and we ain't gonna let nothing happen to them. Whatever. I don't know. But I distinctly remember more than once where that was the case. Growing up in Chicago gave me a musical education that I will always cherish. There's something about a Chicagoan that grew up or came up in my era and probably previous eras too, that gave us a musical education that was second to none. We heard all kinds of music growing up. Chicago is that step capital of the world. So the Herb Kent on V103 on Sundays. We heard steppers music and Battle of the Bands and, just different types. It wasn't just rap. It wasn't just, what was hot at the time. We heard Temptations. We heard Dennis Edwards. We heard, Haunted House by Lee Oscar. That's the kind of stuff we heard on the radio. It was a musical education that my 13, 14-year-old ears. I mean, I had a musical knowledge that rivaled most adults as a young teen, just because of where I grew up and what I was around and what I was immersed in by not just my family, my parents or whatever. Turn on the radio. It was a musical variety that was like none other. And then don't even get me started with the house music. But all that, I bring all that into play to say this. That city is one that I will never step foot in unless I have to for the rest of my life. And it saddens me to say that because it no longer resembles the place that I fell in love with. It's the same as if you fall in love with a woman or a man, and over time that person transforms into something you don't recognize anymore. And you keep holding on, hoping that person that you fell in love with returns. But after a while, you have to say to yourself and be honest to yourself or honest with yourself and say, you know what? I can't do it anymore. That was me in Chicago. I had a love affair with that city. The music, the food. Oh my God, let's not even get into the food. If you go hungry in Chicago, that was a choice. That place is diverse with good food. And some of the best food is in the worst areas. I always joke that if you got to order behind 3-inch bulletproof glass, that's going to be some bomb ass food. You just got to get in and get out before something jump off. I was there. Let me rephrase. I went to visit my sister. She lives in the suburbs. She lives in Indiana. And I wanted a certain sandwich that was only sold in a certain spot. And unfortunately, I had to go against my own saying. We had to go to 84th and Stony to get this sandwich. Now, we had to order behind 3-inch bulletproof glass, but it was a bomb sandwich. We got in, got out. So, that was the first time I had stepped foot in the city in years. And it saddens me to say that. Because I've always said Chicago is a beautiful city. Aesthetically, it's a beautiful city. Even in the hood places, even in the the working class areas, It was a city that moved. You see the trains going through, up and down the Dan Ryan. You see, the skyline in the distance. You see the big lips on 87th and State Street. There are iconic things that you see growing up, and they stick with you. And you can speak to anybody from that city of a certain age, and you can come up and you all can talk and reminisce and all that for hours, and realize how similar your upbringings were. That's a thing. That is an actual thing. I love to talk to a Chicagoan of a certain age, because we can reminisce, because we did the same shit. Yeah, we threw parties behind the Museum of Science and Industry, and we rolled out speakers and turntables and plugged it into the lampposts. They had outlets in them, and partied all night. It's what we did. And not once did we worry about getting shot up. Now, don't get me wrong. Statistically, Chicago was more dangerous in the 90s than it is today. Statistically, there were more murders in the 90s than there are today. But I submit to you that back in the 90s, back in the day when I was a teenager, you had to be caught up in something. You had to be doing dirt for dirt to come visit you. Nowadays, all you need to do is walk out of your house and you're a target. That's the thing. It feels more random these days, even though statistically you were more of a target back then than you are now. But it doesn't feel that way, and I think that's the whole thing. It doesn't feel that way. So what am I getting through? The thing is, it's a shell of what it used to be. And then you got all these talking head politicians that tout the numbers on the decline, which they are, in all fairness. But there are certain places in that city that you just can't go. Don't get me wrong. I don't know why you would want to go there. But if I'm driving down Cottage Grove and I end up at 83rd Street, that shouldn't be a death sentence for me. If I'm driving down King Drive and I end up at 63rd Street at that light at Rothschild's, that shouldn't be a death sentence for me. And there's no guarantee that it will be, but more often than not, it could be. I have a lot of people who I grew up with in Chicago, and they still live there, and they have this mentality, oh man, if it's your time to go, it's your time to go. And I just can't do that fatalistic thought process. If it's my time to go, it's my time to go, so just fuck it, do what you do. And if you get shot, you get shot. Is that the way you're supposed to live? Maybe I'm wrong. But that's a really fatalistic way to look at things. Now, I don't expect them to get out and march like Martin Luther King and hold these thugs' feet to the fire. And I don't expect them to do that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not expecting superhuman efforts from people who just trying to live their lives. But the whatever, I just find that hard to deal with. See, coming up, And the thing about it is, it ain't just where we live anymore. It's all over the place. It's everywhere. It's the north side. It's the by the lake. It's the Gold Coast. It's the west side. It's the east side. It's everywhere. There's a distinctive thug element that is intent on making life in that city as difficult as possible. Prime example. So, like I said, I won't go back to that city unless I have to. And in 2022, April, I had to. Good friend of mine passed away. And I was literally in this mental turmoil of, do I really want to go back to that city? And his funeral was being held in the heart of one of these neighborhoods that is hard to live in. So I legitimately wrestled with it. I consulted some people. I mean, I wrestled with it because he was a good friend. But I'm like, I don't have a desire. But I ended up going. So I rode there, drove to Chicago, stayed with a friend, rode to the funeral with the friend. So I'm in the back seat just watching everything. And just looking at the people, just walking around, living their daily lives. There's a heaviness to a lot of these folk. Just a weight on their shoulders you can just see. Just them walking down the street or standing at a bus stop or whatever. There's just a heaviness. A beat downness to people in that city. And I'm like, that's just hard. I can't imagine. So we go to the funeral and pay our respects, and the repast was across the street from the funeral home. Across 79th Street. Well, actually, no, take that line back. It's across Cottage Grove around 78th. So we're crossing the street. And, we're dapping folk up outside the repast, friends I hadn't seen in a long time because I'd been gone from that city for years. And just, hey, what's going on? Nice to see you, but hate the circumstance, that kind of thing. And in the distance, not a far distance, but a near distance, I hear what I come to later find out were gunshots. But at the time, I'm just like, hear a popping. Now, don't get me wrong, that was the first thing I thought. I'm on 79th and Cottage Grove. What else you gonna think? But didn't really think much of it because it wasn't in the immediate vicinity. We going to the repast, we do what we do, we leave. With the plan to meet up later somewhere else and kind of like celebrate the life of our departed friend. So everybody goes to the second spot or whatever, and we're playing cards and having a little drink, and one of my guys walk in and say, "Hey, you heard the news?" I was like, "No." A girl was shot down 79th Street, a few blocks away from where we were. And the shots you heard were actual gunshots. And I'm like, it's just, why? Look, I grew up, there were hustlers, there were gangbangers. Gangbangers do what gangbangers do. I mean, I'm not even going to speak on that. They do what they do. But the hustlers back in the day inherently and instinctively knew, I think they were more business savvy. They knew random violence was bad for business. If, you gonna get your junkies, it's gonna come regardless. But if people thought that they would get killed trying to get a sack of weed or whatever, they're less likely to come to your spot. Random violence is bad for business. Random violence is bad all around. But I mean, the only question I always is why? Just why? These YNs nowadays, the first thing they do is grab a gun. Whereas when we were coming up, the last thing we did was grab a gun. Don't get me wrong, we grabbed guns too. Now, I'm not saying that we were all innocent angels and we did it. No. We had our issues. But the first thing these YNs do nowadays is grab a gun. The last thing we did was grab a gun. And I think the reason why the first thing these YNs do is grab a gun because they can't fight. None of them. They can't fight. They don't know how to fight. So they want to kill. Now, it could be the fact that Chicago police solve like 10% or 20% of murders in the city, and they know they're going to get away with it. Maybe that's it. But the first thing they do is grab a gun, whereas the last thing we did was grab a gun. And just why? These folk don't see life as worth living, I guess. In the midst, now don't get me wrong, I wasn't a thug, I wasn't a gangbanger, I wasn't a hustler, I didn't have any of that in me. I didn't have the heart for it. But even in the midst of my hood living, I knew that there had to be more to life than this. Now, I ultimately didn't get to upper echelon status and upper middle class and upper class. No, I didn't get there. But as a kid, I knew there was more to life than this. And I wanted to see it. Example. In the summers, me and my man, he will remain nameless, but he knows who he is. We would call each other up on a summer morning or, we both out of school. Hey, what you doing? Nothing. Man, let's go to the north side. Let's go to North Pier. All right, meet you at 95th Street. That was the main terminal for buses and trains. We'd meet each other at 95th Street. We'd go up north to the north side, see how the other folk lived, and spent the day up there and just enjoyed life. We'd go get something to eat, go find an arcade. There's a place called North Pier we used to go to. It had a little arcade in it, had a little food spot in it. It was up by Navy Pier. So we go up there, we walk around, we just see how the other half lived. See something different, see something more than the hood. Because we instinctively knew there's more to life than this. And we want to see it. Gave us a little bit of hope. Maybe we can get here one day. Now, the whole socio-economic and political, that's all, that shit didn't register with us when we were 12 and 13 years old. All we needed was $20 and some time, and we had a ball. And we do that a lot. Because we wanted to see how the other half lived. But nowadays, they shooting folk up on the Magnificent Mile. That Michigan Avenue where all the white folk go to shop. I used to walk up there. We used to walk up there and walk around and go into stores that we know we can't afford, and the Tiffany store and the Nike Town, and all those little boutiques up there. We just like to see shit that we couldn't afford. We ain't mean no harm. We ain't starting no trouble. We just kids that just wanted to see other things. But then nowadays, what's the cat? FBG Duck, rapper from the old block 64th and King Drive, was at the Gold Coast at some store, and he gets ambushed and shot up. Now, I don't advocate killing anybody, but I've always said, if you're gonna shoot, hit who you're aiming at, and they did. But the bottom line is, they could have killed or hurt other people that had nothing to do with this, who were just on the Gold Coast shopping. It's like we can't go nowhere now. We can't go anywhere and not worry about randomness. And it's not, I don't honestly think it's central to Chicago. I think that's everywhere. I use Chicago as an example because that's where I have the most experience. But that's everywhere. You can't do shit. As you all might know, I live right outside of Memphis. Memphis is its own animal. Definitely its own animal. But they shooting downtown Memphis, Beale Street. They shooting up Beale. Come on, y'all. We can't go to Beale Street. Look, if you want to kill each other, be my guest. But do it in your own neighborhoods. Give me a place that I can go to that I ain't got to worry about getting shot at. Give me something. It's insane. I'd rather you not kill each other. I'd rather you not kill other black people. I don't want you to kill white people either, but I'm just saying. I'd rather you not kill other black people. I'd rather you not eliminate an entire generation. I'd rather you not. But if you must, if you cannot help yourself, do it in your own hood. Do it where you live. You want to shoot up your own neighborhood and make old ladies scared to come outside in the afternoons and make little kids not want to play. If you want to do that, shoot your own hood up. Keep your beefs internal. Let people who want to just live life, let us live life. So Bronzeville is an area of Chicago that's upwardly mobile black folk, historically and currently. That's why it's called Bronzeville. So it's a village for the bronze people. Okay? The newish police headquarters is located in that area, and it's a lot of young, wealthy black folk that buy like the brownstones there. I mean, it's a nice area. But it borders upon some of the roughest areas in the city. You go south a mile, I'd say, on King Drive, you go from Bronzeville to Old Block. And I ain't got to tell you what Old Block is about. I'm sure you've heard about it. But this lady was walking out of a Starbucks one day in Bronzeville, and somehow or another she gets shot up just walking out of a Starbucks. And if I remember the story correctly, she wasn't even the intended target. She was a target, but not the one they were aiming for. And all she was doing was living her life. Why is the desire to get a Tai Chi, no, what's it called? A chai tea, that's it. Why is the desire of getting a chai tea grounds to die? That's what I mean. It doesn't take much. And so what's the solution? I have radical solutions that will not be popular. And they won't be popular because we can't trust that this apparent violation of rights will stop with, let me just say it, fuck it. I personally don't have a problem with the National Guard patrolling these dangerous ass cities. Now, they're patrolling these dangerous ass cities not because of some altruistic motive to save the city from itself. No, this is all political. So this is why it probably won't work in practicality. But theoretically, we know who the criminals are. We know who the criminals are. As a matter of fact, they tell us who the criminals are. They tell them themselves. They go on social media and tell us what they do. Ain't like we got to guess. I have no problem with, all right, y'all, military, go in there and round all these motherfuckers up. Let's do a clean sweep of these streets. The thing about that is, though, I can't trust that it just stops there. That's a slippery slope kind of argument. You bring them in for this and you never know what else they might do. But there's got to be something. There's got to be a way. There has to be a way. That 5-year-old, that 7-year-old, that 10-year-old deserves an adulthood. They deserve to grow up. Hell, you 18, how come he can't make 18? They deserve better. And that's the frustration. Look, I'm past that age. I've done my living, I've done my growing. I navigated those streets as well as I could. I'm out the loop. But there are children out there that won't see 15. And sometimes no fault of their own. And the kicker is, all we do is throw our hands up and say, oh, well, it was his time. Seriously? There should be no child's time for gun violence, period. There should be no child whose time needs to come because of gun violence, period. We throw our hands up in the air and just say, oh, well. Now, again, what's the answer? I don't know. But I definitely know the situation needs fixing. And the people we put in charge, who are supposed to have the answers, or at least supposed to want to get to the answers, they tout minuscule victories. and act like all is well. Well, gun violence is down 10%. It was only 440 murders this year as opposed to 480. Yeah, but it's still 440 dead people. That's nothing to celebrate. That's nothing to be happy for. People kill people. We will always kill each other. That's just what we do. But the bottom line is, there has to be a way to protect your citizens from unnecessary violence. There has to be a way. We need to start putting people in charge who have answers, or who at least give enough of a damn to try to find an answer. Maybe I'm naive. I can live with that. Maybe I'm naive for thinking that there can be change. Maybe I'm naive. Living in this Pollyanna world somewhere where we all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. But there's got to be a way that these children... I saw it wasn't a TikTok. Maybe it was on TikTok, but I saw it on Facebook Reels because I don't have TikTok. So I was watching a video. Maybe my sister sent it to me. I don't even remember now. But I'm watching a video of these kids. The oldest, it's like 3 or 4 kids. The oldest couldn't be more than 8 years old. And they're standing in front of this camera. And they got these toy guns. I mean, obviously toy guns, like, Super Soaker types or whatever. Just obvious toy guns. But they got these toy guns. And they're holding them up to the camera, talking thug shit. Now, mind you, the oldest is like 8 years old. I would say the youngest is like 4 or 5. And I'm just looking at it. I'm like, wait a minute. I can't be mad at them because they see this in their daily lives. The people tasked with raising these children are doing them a disservice. But the thing about it is, nobody sees anything wrong with it. It's just the way it is. And those kids are going to grow up thinking that's the way to live their lives. Starting wars with people on the next block. Insane. We ain't going to make it. I really start to think and always have this hope that one day we'll figure this out and become a little more productive as a culture, a people, a society. But I'm really under the impression that we ain't gonna make it. We're just not. That might upset some people, but where's the lie? We ain't gonna make it as a people. We don't care enough. We just not. What's gonna be our ultimate downfall? I don't know. But we don't have a collective bone in our body. We don't have a collaborative bone in our body. We don't have a community bone in our body. It's every man for himself. I don't give a damn about you. If I can make this money on your back, damn your back. We ain't gonna make it. We are, that's another conversation for another day. I'm running out of time here, and I don't want to make this any longer than it is. but we just ain't. We're at a tipping point, and the people that we are leaving in charge, are you kidding me? I ain't speaking to white folk. This ain't got nothing to do with y'all. The people that we're leaving in charge. Look, I'm in my 50s. I got more yesterdays than I got tomorrows. I'm not the one that's going to be taking over the world in 30 years. But these YNs are, if they survive, well, whoever's left after the massacre, we ain't going to make it. There's not another Martin. There's not another Malcolm, Stokely, Hampton, H. Rap Brown. There's not another one of them in this crop of fools that we're raising. Jesse. There's not another one of them in this crop of fools that we're raising. There just isn't. I hope I hope against hope, and I still hold out that one day we'll. But as we sit here, we ain't gonna make it. Makes me sad for my child, who's knee deep in the teeth of this mess. The road screwing through the concrete, but I don't know. I don't even know what to tell you anymore. So because I don't know what to tell you anymore, I'm going to shut up. Let me get down off this soapbox, put it in the closet with this velvet cover over it, like I do every week. And I will say to you, until we meet again, like I always say, take care of yourselves, because we all we got. Peace.